Welcome aboard the Ear to There podcast, the podcast that'll help you vacation like a pro in any Disney destination. For those of you standing, please sit down and hold on throughout our journey and get ready to learn how to have the time of your life. And now, here's your host, Phil Gramlich.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There podcast. My name is Phil Gramlich, and I am the owner and operator of Ear to There Travel, a Disney specialized travel agency. I'm here to help you vacation like a total pro in any Disney destination, including Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, and Disney's Aulani Resort in Hawaii. You can find my blog, podcast, money-saving tips, or request a free no-obligation quote over at eartotheretravel.com. Thank you so much for listening, and now on with the show. The Disney theme parks have always been and will always be in a constant state of change. Walt Disney himself said of his original park, Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. Disney is always moving forward and breaking new ground with new restaurants, shows, and attractions. And unfortunately, certain favorites have been lost along the way. But that doesn't mean we have to like it. Sometimes, as fans, we're left asking ourselves, why, Disney, did you get rid of blank? And because I don't want to complain all by myself, I asked two fellow Disney fans to come on and help me out. First, I'd like to welcome a lifelong Walt Disney World fan and a current Orlando area resident who can be found in the theme parks at least a few times each week, Mr. Johnny Shortsleeve.
At least a few times. That's right, my man. Phil, thanks for letting me come on, man. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk Disney, and I think I got a few here that I want to throw your way, see what you think. And if you disagree with me on any of these, Phil, I am not going to unfriend you or think less of you. I'm curious to hear what you got to say about my list here. So hopefully we're on the same page.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. And I think we'll probably agree on a lot of them, to be honest with you. And cool. And second, I'd like to welcome a man who not only remembers the penny arcade, but also remembers when games cost a penny. From the Disney fan site, The World of Walt, it's Herb Leibacher. Herb?
Hey, Phil. Thank you. I have earned every gray hair that is on my head, and I am proud of them. And yes, I remember when you could actually buy something with a penny back in the old days.
When you had to walk 10 miles to school in the
Uphill
snow.
Both ways. That's right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, both of you guys, for being here. And like I said in the intro, you know, Disney, they're great. Every year seems like there's something new, but there's only so much room they have. They have to get rid of things. Some things, you know, the technology is just not there anymore. So, you know, they have to replace things in order to bring new things in. So I wanted to start with, Johnny, why don't you let us know what your first thing that you wish Disney had never gotten rid of was?
All right. So we're recording right now, late January 2016. This one's new. It's still fresh in my mind, and it still stings. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It still stings. Yeah. Getting rid of Mulch, Sweat, and Shears, Disney's Hollywood Studios. That was their house rock band. In case anyone didn't see them, basically the storyline there was that there was a group of landscapers who had dreams and aspirations of becoming rock stars, and when they weren't taking care of the landscaping around the parks and the property, they'd sneak in with their truck already loaded with all their music gear. They'd try to play a few sets for the guests, and in hopes that somebody there was a record producer or somebody of influence in the entertainment business who could give them the record deal that they've always been hoping for. It was just a fun show. And you know, I'm a very big music fan. I've been playing music since I was a young kid. I have a cousin who's in a rock band. He's a full-fledged rock star. So it's very important for me to be in that scene and to enjoy live music like that. And you know, I love Disney. I love Disney through and through. So when I say this, I'm going to say this not because I'm a Disney fan. This is 100% genuine. These guys were good. So for example, I have a daughter, as you know, both you guys know. She's 6 years old, and we would go down there and see their set at least once a week. It was just a fun adventure for us to go do. And they had this one song that they would play. It's called Counting Stars by One Republic. Fairly new song, only been out a couple years. we hear them play that in the sets every now and then. My daughter comes up to me one day and goes, "Hey, I want to hear that Stars song that Malt, Sweat, and Cheers plays. Can you play it for me?" So I go grab my iPhone, pull it up on iTunes and download it and play it for her. The original version, the One Republic version. She listens to the whole thing and she goes, "Dad, I kind of like the way Malt, Sweat, and Cheers does it better." And I agreed with her. It's not because I like the guys and just the experience, not because I just want to agree with my daughter just for sake of. No, she was right. Like, they did it better. No disrespect to One Republic, but somebody covered the song better. And that was the case with a lot of the stuff that they did. Their material was fantastic. They had just an amazingly talented group of musicians that played in that group. So fast forward to what happened. So the story, as I understand it, is that because of all the enhancements that are coming to Disney's Hollywood studios with Star Wars Land, with the Toy Story Land, and then other things that are happening, a lot of things are unfortunately closing right now in Disney's Hollywood studios, and that was one of the shows that had to close. The reason why I'm upset about that is, well, number one, it's selfish. They were just fantastic. I love going and seeing them once a week, just whenever I wanted. But the thing that I'm upset about, and the reason why I'm kind of going, Disney, why did you do this? Because I thought that show was very portable. I mean, literally their truck and their trailer had all their PA, all their electrical. They could drive that truck literally to the front of my house and play a set if they wanted to, right down the street from the parks. Why couldn't they take that somewhere else to another park or downtown? Excuse me, I almost said downtown Disney Springs. And I know, man, old habits are hard to break. But for whatever reason, they decided that was going to be the answer after 11 years. But here's the good news. So here's the good news. 5 of them got back together and played their first set a few weeks ago at the House of Blues in Disney Springs. They rebranded themselves as American Martian. So if anyone listening to this hasn't already heard about this and they're fans and going, "Oh, yes, I loved Malt, Sweat, and Cheers. What's going on with them?" They're now American Martian. 5 of the guys are. And you can find them on Twitter and Instagram. It's at AMMARS Band, Mars Band, on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to hit up House of Blues, tell them, "Hey, I want to hear another show. I heard those guys were good." They literally, guys, they killed it at the House of Blues. I've seen a bunch of shows at the House of Blues. That was my favorite one, literally. They sounded amazing. The house was just on fire. Like, everyone there was just loving it. It was packed. So hit up House of Blues Orlando at HOB Orlando and tell them, "Hey, I want American Martian back. That was a great show." Even if you didn't see it, just pretend you did. And see if you can get some buzz. Because, guys, this is just an amazing act. It's family friendly, which I thought was cool. So to be able to take your whole family to see a rock and roll show live in an environment where it's family friendly, it's safe. You don't have to worry about all the junk that could go on when you go to see it at a major concert venue. That's a pretty special thing. And when you have these guys that are amazingly talented, that's just another reason why, I'm just kind of really, really bummed that Disney decided to close that show.
Yeah, I agree, man. I've seen that a bunch of times with my kids. They loved it. And it's kind of their intro to rock and roll. We don't really, we have a lot of Sesame Street going on in my house. A lot of, what else? Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and that kind of stuff. So we're not.
You're singing my song, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know we don't do a whole lot of rock music in the Graham household, but they loved that. And the cool part was just the randomness, the random element of it. When you'd be walking, you leave Star Tours, you're walking down, what the heck's it called, the streets of America, and the truck would come out, and you could stand there for 15 minutes and listen to a whole bunch of songs. It was great, and I am going to miss that. The 4 for $1 show at Beauty and the Beast was a great show that I really enjoyed, and it was the pre-show for the Beauty and the Beast live on stage show.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And it really bummed me out when they got rid of those guys. It was another live act that they got rid of, and I was really upset. It's the same kind of thing where, well, actually, I think that was like a budget. They claimed that it was a budget cut, but I know what you mean. It's a bummer when they get rid of like the live acts like that.
Well, and there's a lot of other live acts that have in the last couple of years, off kilter. Gosh, I hope I didn't just take one of you guys by just saying that. If I did, I apologize. But, so here's the thing. I understand, the budget aspect of it. It's a business. We all know that. But, one part of it wonders, I'm curious to hear you guys' take on this is, if we're seeing such a reduction in live acts in the parks, I wonder part of it is, you can't. You can go to the Haunted Mansion or the Pirates of the Caribbean, and you can ride that attraction a dozen times back to back. It's the same attraction. It's consistent. With live entertainment, it's a different show. That's what I like about it personally.
Right.
To get that element of surprise. It's something different, something new. That's why I would go see it once a week, see the show, because I knew it was going to be something different. Was going to happen. If they want that control over the guest experience, it's very hard to have that control with a live entertainment venue or live entertainers.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
This is a very interesting time when it comes to live entertainment. I think Off Kilter was a great example. And I would think of all places at Disney's Hollywood Studios, they would be bringing in more live entertainment. It's like you said, it's portable. It's relatively cheap. It's something you can plug in when the construction walls come up. And yet that's not what we're seeing. So I think it's a very interesting move. And in the long term, I'm sure that things are going to be great. But some of these interim changes are kind of hard to understand. And kind of sad in some ways too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, Herb, over to you for your first thing that this is going to turn into a Disney bashing podcast very quickly. I don't want it to be like that. This is I'm hoping it's more of a reminiscing kind of podcast. But Herb, over to you for your first one.
We will call it reminiscing.
Yeah, I'll change the name.
I was going to say that, in way of introduction and disclaimer, that I'm kind of a Disney traditionalist. I do like things the way that they were originally, but I understand that things do change, technology changes, times change. If we do want some fresh things, sometimes something has to go. And I think that's the case with my first item. So I'm heading over to the Magic Kingdom and to Fantasyland, and I am going 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So open from opening day 71 through 94. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I remember vividly as a kid. It was an attraction that made a big impact on me. And this is where those gray hairs come back in, because I actually do remember going on it. So it was interesting that these submarines weren't really submarines at all. They were actually boats where you sat beneath the water level. They were built in Florida, and each person, as you climbed down these tiny little steps into kind of a soppy seating area, you had your own little porthole, and you got to look out on a world of adventure that was 20,000 leagues under the sea. There was a graveyard of ships. There were sharks and fish, and of course the giant sea monster at the end, which you would of course escape. I just was fascinated by the story and completely pulled in, even though, yes, I knew this was just a big cement pond. So I do miss 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We got a lot of great things in its place. Pooh's Playful Spot aside, we eventually got Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea I thought was an amazing attraction. I understand why it had to go. It was not very ADA compliant. I understand there were plenty of maintenance issues, and eventually the subs ended up in a landfill for the most part. But when it was there, it was a pretty amazing adventure.
Isn't that a shame that they ended up in a landfill? Don't you wish you could have one like in your backyard just to kind of hang out in?
You think that's an urban legend, or is that do you know that for a fact?
Wikipedia said so it must
really?
Be.
No, it's a done deal then. Yeah,
I know they sank one of them right at Castaway Cay. I think
what
them, you could, and it turned into like an artificial reef or something like that.
Yeah, what I read was the attraction closed in 94, and they pulled all the subs out in 96. So there was a lot of, I almost want to say miscommunication, but maybe uncertainty about the attraction, because originally it was positioned as a temporary closure. When the years went by and eventually everybody figured out this attraction was gone. And so they pulled the subs out after a couple of years, and what I read was that they just moved them around backstage areas. It sounds like they didn't really have a plan. And I think 3 of them survived. One went to support the Disney Cruise Line, I think, was sunk near the private island.
Right.
A couple, I think, got stripped away, but the rest of the fleet, they say, was buried, which is kind of sad because I would love to have one in my backyard. And that was the day of eBay. I would think someone would buy something like that on eBay.
Yeah, the monorails have popped up on eBay. I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah,
there's a guy that turned one into a camper. I saw it on property. He parked in the Polynesian parking lot.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Nice. Yeah, he bought it on one of the old Mark whatever 5, or I don't remember which one it was. But you know what's going to happen if that is true, and it's in they're in a couple of them are in a landfill. Let's fast forward 50 years, and some guy's going to be cruising around with a metal detector, and he's like, whoa, this thing is lighting up. Let's see, get the shovel, see what's going on.
Yeah, I think you're right. That would be a heck of a find for somebody who didn't know they were there, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like.
All right, so the first two we had were great. My first one is going to be, I'm not going very far from where 20,000 Leagues used to be. I'm going over to Frontierland, and this is another pretty recent one. And this might seem silly to you guys, but it's the Pecos Bill menu and a Fixins bar.
Yeah.
Which, now my first trip to Disney was in '92, and I can't remember if we went on that trip. But I know ever since I was on the college program in '98, that has been like my favorite place to get lunch in the Magic Kingdom. Go get a bacon cheeseburger, throw on some mushrooms. I'm not a big onion guy, but I would do the the Cheese Whiz like cheese on the side with my fries, man.
Yeah.
And I can't hear. I heard someone talking in the background there. But,
no, that wasn't me talking. It was me drooling. Is what that was.
The Homer Simpson.
Just right over the microphone. I got to clean this sucker off now.
But yeah, I mean, I was really bummed when they announced the menu change. I mean, first they got rid of the cheese, and then the whole Fixins bar went away, and now it's the Chipotle, as Herb told me before, inspired, like the Disney's version of Chipotle. And
yep.
Listen, I love Chipotle, and it's a great idea. I'm just bummed that it's where I used to go to get my burgers at Magic Kingdom because, when I'm on vacation, I'm at Disney, even though I spend like a month of the year there, so I probably shouldn't eat as much as I do. But when I'm on vacation, I want a burger, man, and I was pretty bummed when they got rid of that. So I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, I got 5 words. Rest in peace, plastic cheese.
Yeah.
Yep. It was sad when that disappeared.
Yeah, I agree.
I like food. I mean, and you've been very gracious and let me pop by your blog and hang out for a few minutes here and there and talk about food. And look, here, let me address the haters that are probably sitting around. Oh, the burgers weren't that good. You know what? No, they weren't the best burgers you've ever had in your life. That's true, but considering where you're at and in the day when you're out in the parks and you're moving around, you're working up a sweat, you're burning a bunch of calories and you're hungry, that burger hit the spot. It was, I mean, you go there after a long morning of traipsing through the parks and doing your thing, and you sat down there with a nice burger, and that was a cool place to hang out too. It was a neat place to sit, especially in that like dark room over there. It was like really, really cool and cold. The AC was pumping hardcore in there. You would walk away with your belly full, and it wasn't that expensive considering all the other things you could be spending your money on. Right. But it was a very satisfying meal. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's a bummer to see it go, but yeah, I guess that's kind of like that's the whole theme of the show, right? That's where everything has to go to make room for something else.
That's true.
I really miss the taco salad, so I like burger as much as the next guy, but especially with the toppings bar, you would pile it with the plastic cheese. You could get the onions and the mushrooms and more lettuce in there. So I really miss the taco salad, although I am kind of a Chipotle guy, so even Disney-fied Chipotle is good for me. But the change, kind of hurt a little bit too.
And not to be cheap, but like a whole family could eat one of those taco salads. I think I'd seen it on more than one occasion where people just filled those things up from the Fixins bar.
Yep.
You really could.
Heck, fill it up again.
Yeah, right. All right, so that was our first 3. So now we're going back to our our 4th, and that's Johnny, over to you for your next thing that you hate Disney for.
All right. Well, speaking of hate, I'm sure someone's going to hear this and go, "This guy is just nuts. He's off his rocker. What's the big deal?" The second one that I thought of was the original Test Track, and I liked World of Motion. Herb, you and I are kindred spirits. I like nostalgia. I like the old rides. I remember going there as a kid, and really, that was a highlight of my Epcot attraction because I'm a car guy. I love cars. Gasoline going through my veins. So when World of Motion closed for a couple years, when I did the update, I was bummed, but I was interested to see what they had in store. And when Test Track came into play, I loved it. I thought it was a cool concept. Seeing that, that whole idea of understanding what they do to basically make sure that the car is, a good car. And I know somebody's going to say, "Oh, those Chevrolet, they're all garbage cars." And let's not go there. Let's just talk about just the process and the story. And that's really the heart of the reason why I missed that version, and I'm not crazy about the new version of Test Track. It's the story. Goodness, I'm going to sound like such a jerk when I say this, but when I'm writing Test Track now, I don't feel like there's a story that's really compelling, and it really immerses me. I know they're trying to immerse me in the design aspect of a motor vehicle, which I appreciate. I know, just having been around cars my whole life, and my father was in the car business, so it literally, I just eat, sleep, breathe cars. I appreciate the design process, but the way that it's put together just doesn't suck me in the way that the Test Track storyline did in the original version. Because you drive, when you're going through the attraction, you were actually in those testing facilities. Going through the rigors, with the brake testing, the ABS brakes, is it going to work or not? Is it going to get me around the curve? Or, there was the corrosion testing. Now, it's the same attraction in terms of, the track that you ride on, but they kind of tried to just gussy it up. It looks like you're riding through the Tron movie now. It's not about, the high speed, like the 65 miles an hour cruising around going fast. That's fine and good. It's a fun part of the attraction. But I really enjoyed the storyline of the original version of Test Track. So that's the second one that stuck out at me, is kind of reminiscing as we're talking about tonight.
I think the tronification of Test Track is very interesting because visually I think it's amazing eye candy. But I think you're right that the story doesn't really come through like it did with the original. And especially since you go by billboards on Interstate 4 here through Orlando and it says, "Design it for it," or something like that. And so I get the idea of the story focused on design. But then you go through the attraction and you sort of get a score at the end, but the experience is really the same except for what the screens display. So I almost wish they had some way to take it a step further, where your attraction experience was different based on your design beyond just seeing some numbers on a screen. I have no idea how that could really happen, but that's what I had hoped for when I heard about the new design and the new story approach. So it almost seems like they did something that was visually stunning, but I wish that there was a next step to connect it to the story and the experience you actually get on the attraction.
Yeah, almost like a Horizon's end to the attraction, right? Like where you would get something different, but depending on what kind of car you designed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like it. I do. I have to admit, I like the new version of it. I don't know if I like it as much as the original one. I remember when I worked in the college program, again, not to kill the point, but when I started my college program, I only worked the summer of '98. It was when I still had summer programs. And they told us, Test Track is opening this summer, get ready. And it didn't. And it took forever to get that ride right. And when I finally did, I got to ride it the next year. And I did. I really liked it then. But I don't mind the changes all that much, to be honest with you. One thing I do miss is I thought it was really fun to go through the cold chamber when it was like 105 degrees.
Yeah.
You get to go through and feel it when it's like 30 degrees in there. But I do miss that. But all right. So, okay. The original Test Track for John, it was one that he misses. And now it's over to you, Herb.
Okay. I'm actually going to escape from the parks, and I'm going to go to a resort. I'm going to hop on the monorail loop and get off at the Polynesian Resort. So way back in 2014, Disney redesigned the lobby area and took out the major big fountain that was the centerpiece of the lobby and really opened up the space. And I've got to say that I do like the way the space looks now. I think there's a lot more seating. It's more open. It doesn't have that sort of musty smell, although I think a lot of people were probably nostalgic for that. And I get why they made the change. But I also remember that something that really, to me, made the Polynesian was the lobby. It sort of had that big lava fountain. It had a sort of special smell to it. I'll call it special, for lack of a better word. And to me, that was really iconic. It made the hotel what it was. And I know that when that change came in, a lot of people lost their collective minds and, what is Disney doing? They're destroying it. Now it looks like every Hilton everywhere. And I think there is some truth to that. Again, understand why they did it, but I am a little bit nostalgic for the Polynesian lobby that was.
Yeah. I mean, I agree to a point. I did really, really like the fountain. I'm not someone who stayed there much when I was, a kid. And I don't have, the big attachment to the Polynesian that a lot of people have. So while I do miss it, I kind of like walking through there with the kids now. There's a lot more room for them to kind of walk through and explore, which maybe that's just me because I have little kids. And with the refurb and with the entire renovation of the lobby comes new things and out of that came Trader Sam's. So I really can't complain too much about that because I think that's one of the coolest places on Disney property.
Yeah, Herb, you brought up a really interesting point, Herb. I want to go back to this for a second. The smell, because my first trip to Walt Disney World was in 1982, and every time that my family stayed in Walt Disney World, we would stay at the Polynesian. And as a kid, going through the 80s, I seem to recall the first time we would walk through that little sliding glass door in the Great Ceremonial House when we arrive on a vacation. There was a smell. It was a floral smell. It was very tropical to me. It was a very distinctive smell that literally got burned into my brain. So that whenever I would be around somewhere, I catch something that was very similar. Oh, that's very reminiscent of how the Polynesian, the Great Ceremonial House lobby used to smell. And then I don't know what happened, but it seemed like as time went on, that smell didn't occur anymore. It wasn't the same, or wasn't as floral and fresh smelling. I'm not saying it was, smelling like a gem sock, but it wasn't the same. And when you said musty, I was thinking, is that the word I would use? And maybe it is. That's really interesting you brought that up, Herb. It kind of brought back some old memories.
Yeah, those smells really do make an impression in our brain. And I think that over time, I don't know, maybe it was the humidity in Florida, maybe there were some issues with how the building was structured or ventilation. But I do remember towards the end it had, to me anyway, something of a musty water smell. And I wouldn't say it was a horrible smell, but it wasn't necessarily the pleasant floral that you were talking about. I always thought that there was a lot of motion in that fountain. There was the water running down. There were all the beautiful flowers. And that was all really neat to see. But sometimes I wonder if some of the decision to pull out the fountain was a little more than just space and aesthetics. Maybe there were some other more structural problems going on. Don't know, but I always wondered.
Yeah, that used to be something that I would have this thing where anytime that we would walk through that sliding door, I would I'd exhale, just clear all the air out of my lungs. And then as soon as the door opened and I just race through, just soak it all in. It's wow, that's paradise right there. And it's so funny you brought that up.
That's funny that you say that too, because now for me, that's the Beach Club, because that was my wife and I, the first DVC that we bought into. And now they have this, Disney can pump, they pump cents into certain, I hope I'm not giving too much away, but they pump cents into the lobbies of certain resorts, or maybe all of them, I'm not quite sure. But the Beach Club has this smell when you walk in. And I do the same thing now when I walk in there and, you take that big, deep breath, and it's just, I don't know. They say that the scent really is like a huge part of your memory, and it really is for me when we go to the beach club. But,
yeah, it's like the Grand Floridian has that, and the Contemporary has that, and I thought I saw somewhere somebody online was able to figure out who supplied them with those particular perfumes and the machines that they use. I thought, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather just go down and be there in person, because if you did that in your house, I mean, it's going to smell nice, but there's so much else going on visually and auditorily, and just that whole it is a sensory experience when you step foot, like you said, into those properties, and that sense of smell just adding to that too. It's just really, really rich experience.
Yeah, it really wouldn't work in my house when you're stepping over, the Little Tykes basketball net and everything else. I don't think it would get the same effect.
I hope you get that built into your office, Phil, because your office is a perfect little microcosm of Disney World, and so that's really going to top it off.
Yeah, I actually should. I'm sitting in there now, and I'm looking around. That actually would be nice. I'll have to repost my little tour on Facebook and stuff for my office. But all right, so that was the Polynesian Fountain. Now I think it's back to me, right? Yeah. So back to me, and I'm going to jump on a monorail and head over to the Magic Kingdom. For something that obviously isn't there anymore, and that's over in Tomorrowland, the extraterrestrial alien encounter. And it's not just because it was replaced by the Stitch's Great Escape attraction, which is an attraction that's not everyone's favorite. Because I don't really hate that attraction. I don't love it either, but when everything's working okay in there, it's fun. When the guns are, the audio animatronic guns are working well and everything's doing what it should. It's not a great attraction, but it's not the worst attraction. But I just love the alien encounter. I thought it brought a really fun edge to Magic Kingdom that it doesn't have anywhere else. And usually the scary attractions are like the roller coasters or Tower of Terror or stuff like that. But this one was just completely psychological, a different kind of scary. And like the alien was scary when you finally saw it, but it was kind of like the build up and the darkness and everything that led up to seeing the alien just added to that suspense, and it made it that much, more creepy. And I really missed that attraction. I thought it was a lot of fun. I get it why Disney had to get rid of it. It probably didn't play very well for families. But and now as a parent, I probably wouldn't love it. But I as a kid and as a teenager and college student, I really did. I loved it, and I miss it. I especially miss the part when the technician, when it was if you guys remember, it was pitch black, and they brought in the poor maintenance worker to fix the power supply, and you heard like the alien screaming, and he was ripped apart by the maintenance guy was ripped apart by the alien, and you got sprayed with some kind of liquid in your face. That you assume was blood. I guess it was supposed to be blood. It was really, really un-Disney. So, I love that attraction. I thought it was a lot of fun, and like I said, I understand why they got rid of it, but it was a bummer for me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Alien Encounter, and I'm not a scary guy. I don't like scary movies. And the first time I went on that attraction was in the days before the internet, the dark days, and I had no idea what to expect. Right. So I walked in and I was blown away. And I think that the pre-show of that attraction was one of the best parts. The Sir robot who talked about teleporting across the breadth of a galaxy, and Clench who was trying to get people to go ahead and hurry up and buy this technology even though it wasn't quite ready. The pre-show set up the story wonderfully. The characters were awesome there. And then the scariness in the main auditorium itself, I think, just added on top of it. I think Disney did some really interesting things there. A lot of it was psychological. So you were talking about basically someone getting killed right above you. It's pitch dark, loud noises. I mean, things coming out and touching you. It was really interesting how all of that came together. I even heard that Disney had somehow included some low frequency vibrations or something like that, because when I walked out of there, I was freaked out. Yeah. I mean, it's not something that just sitting in a dark room freaks you out, or just getting sprayed by water freaks you out. But all of these pieces coming together made for an incredible experience. And I agree, Phil, it did not belong in Tomorrowland or the Magic Kingdom. I don't think so. I get why they didn't keep it. But it was, I think, very much pushing the edge for Disney. I liked the fact that they did that. And again, not that I'm a scary guy or enjoy scary things, but I really appreciated and miss that attraction.
I think I'm going to echo everything you guys just said. It was a neat attraction. I enjoyed it. The story was absolutely amazing. And I think that, kind of going back to what we were talking about with Test Track and being able to illustrate just how well they can craft a story, basically, an original storyline in that case, which I think is an original story. I can't think of where it would have come from, and to immerse you into it. And like you said, man, it scared me in that thing. But as a parent, I do understand that if I try to bring my kids into that, I know there was warnings and that kind of stuff. There'd be a lot of damage to undo. Yeah, right. For young kids. And it's nice to know that, still there's some thrilling things in the Magic Kingdom, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain. Those are thrilling rides. You can really enjoy attractions like that, even like the Mine Train, if you want a little extra zip while you're there. But that I think that was just a little too much, unfortunately. So I agree with you guys 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, Haunted Mansion scares your kids now, just think about like when, how long, I forget what year it closed, but I can't imagine bringing my 5-year-old or 6-year-old and being like, you're going to love it. Like, no, they're not. It's scary. It's really scary.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that was the extraterrestrial alien encounter. Now for your third one, we go over to you, Johnny. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to a locale that no one has mentioned yet. Or I mentioned it in the first one slightly, but it's down at Downtown Disney, which is now Disney Springs. The Car Masters Weekend. And I mentioned my love of cars. I loved that event. If you weren't familiar with it, it was something that usually happened during Father's Day weekend, 2-day event. A whole bunch of cars would show up. I don't know exactly who they talked to, what car clubs they got involved with to bring the cars in, but a lot of people would bring their cars to show. And I love going to car shows. It's a lot of fun to talk to the owners and get the story of the car and their story with the car. And they'd have celebrities show up, it'd be like Disney type celebrities, like they'd have like Lightning McQueen would be there, but they also would have car celebrities like Chip Foose would show up there regularly. He's a guy who's a legendary car builder, had some TV shows, super, super nice guy. And they would bring a lot of special little extra touches to make it like one of the best car shows that I'd been to. And they'd have vendors there selling cool stuff. And they have like the food trucks there, which again, going back to food and cars, you put those two together. Johnny Shortsleeve's a happy man at that point. And the thing that was kind of tough for me to see it go. So 2015 Father's Day weekend, they did not have it. Part of me wonders if maybe the reason was because of all the construction going on. A lot of that kind of sprawled around the property down there in Disney Springs, into the parking lots, like the West End parking lot over by Cirque du Soleil. And then just like a lot of the walkways were taken up by the cars and the exhibits, things like that. They don't have a lot of that space right now because of the construction. So maybe that's part of it. And so I'm kind of secretly hoping that that's the answer and not that it's done. It's not going to happen because 2014 was the last year they had it. That was a special year for me because I was there with my father. And that was the first time that the both of us had a chance to enjoy that together. And, like I said, my dad was a car guy. He's a retired mechanic. So he, to be there with him on Father's Day weekend, doing something that we both loved at a place that we loved in Disney. He was down for the weekend for that. And that was just a really, really memorable experience for me. And then to have it not happen again in 2015
with no mention of it again in the future really bums me out. But again, I'm secretly hoping that once they get all the construction wrapped up here, hopefully pretty soon, that'll be something again that they'll want to bring back.
Yeah, that is kind of a bummer, and I have to admit, I don't know a whole lot about cars. You guys both know me. I like to say that there was a great comedian who I love, Mitch Hedberg, who passed away.
Oh, yeah.
I think he passed away like 10 years ago or so. And on his last CD, he had a great joke. And he said, I don't know much about cars. And then he said, if someone told me their car wouldn't start, I would say, well, maybe there's a killer chasing you. And I always thought that was like the greatest joke ever. So I'm kind of like him. I don't know much about cars, but I am bummed for you that you didn't get to do it this year. And you have what kind of car? I forget. You have a really classic
which
car.
kind? I got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The one I think you're referring to is a '67 Chevy Camaro, and it's fun to think when you look at a car like that and all the stuff it doesn't have. It's got an AM radio with one speaker. My other car's got Bose surround sounds, super nice audio, and a satellite radio, AM radio, one speaker, and I love it more. Like there's. You think back to just the talking about test track and design. I mean, the design of the cars back in all the way up through the 60s, very, very early 70s. Just amazing stuff was going on at that time. And when you see those cars on the road today, they make you turn your head and look, because not only because you don't see them very often, but the design is timeless for these things. And I don't know if the same can be said about the stuff that's being made today, unfortunately. So to me, to be able to, any chance you have to gather around an event like that, especially with, if you have young kids, just to share that with them, it's a fun thing to tell that, you go around, what I love about that is you go around a show like that, like Car Masters Weekend. You can be checking out a car and you'll overhear a dad talking to his son and saying something, hey, when I was a kid, I had a car like this, and this is what we did. And you tell, you reminisce. It's an emotional anchor for these people, and it brings out these stories, and you're bonding, connecting over a time that was just a really special time. That's cool. That to me, that's really, really cool. So I hope it's something that is going to be coming back soon once the construction is done, because it is a really neat thing that they do.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Johnny. And I think that those sort of events are especially attractive to locals like us. So the Cars Masters Weekend, the Festival of the Masters, art show. I mean, it brings something new to that area that you can come and see. It's not there all the time, but there are a lot of different displays. And I'm also hopeful that after Disney Springs grows up and the next couple of years construction gets wrapped up, that we'll see more special events like that.
I like that phrase. That phrase grows up. That's good. It's still in its infancy still.
I saw them pouring the water and stuff, and it looks pretty awesome from where I am.
I'm excited about what's to come.
It looks really cool. All right, so Car Masters Weekend was the last one, and now over to you, Herb, for your next one.
Okay, so I'm going to go super old school on this. Back to the Magic Kingdom, back to Fantasyland, back to an opening day attraction. And I need to say in way of introduction, I understand why this is not here anymore. This just wouldn't play to today's audiences. But in its time, it was pretty amazing. And I am referring to the Mickey Mouse Revue. So the Mickey Mouse Revue was a musical revue that had all kinds of classic Disney songs that were performed by animatronic Disney characters, some 30 of them on stage. So you got to hear songs like Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. And at the end, Mickey conducted the entire orchestra in Zippity Doo Dah, and it wrapped up with a Mickey Mouse alma mater. I recently watched this on YouTube, and it really is old school. I mean, they're sort of simple animatronics. They can't move a lot, but the story really is about a string of songs. And those songs are Disney classics, and they sort of tug at your heartstrings. So even if the technology wasn't so exciting, even if, it's basically just a concert of Disney songs, those Disney songs really make an emotional impact. And I can see why back in its day this was an e-ticket attraction. It eventually got shipped up and sent over to Tokyo Disneyland, where it ran until actually 2009. So it was there for a long time. And I'm glad that today we still have a similar type of attraction in the very same space. That's the spot that now holds Mickey's PhilharMagic, which, just like Mickey Mouse Review, is basically a review of classic Disney songs, sort of stitched together in a loose story. So I understand why it's not there. It really was old school. It would not play to today's audiences. It's just too simple. But this idea of classic Disney songs performed by Disney characters in the Mickey Mouse Review, in its time, it was a winner.
Yeah, I never got to see it. I'm kind of bummed. I looked it up on YouTube too, not too long ago, and watched the show. And yeah, you're right. It wouldn't work today, but it was a really neat, really neat show. And I thought the animatronics were not, horrible for coming out in 1971. I mean, they had a little bit of movement, and they're neat now. It's really neat now that they put the is it the Three Caballeros now that were originally in that attraction?
Yes.
On the Grand Fiesta Tour over in the Mexico Pavilion, right?
Yep, that is exactly right.
Yeah,
yep,
I just saw them a few weeks ago when we were down for Marathon Weekend, and I don't know what they did with them, how they cleaned them up, but they look great.
Yeah, the animatronics were simple, so especially considering they were probably developed in the late 60s to be up and running in 71. But I think it came back to the music for me. The music made an impression. I think that spot's also a very interesting spot. So what I read in, again, Wikipedia, was the theater itself will seat 500 guests, but supposedly this was a planning error where the pre-show area only has room for 300. Right. So you can't really fill up the theater all the time because of the way the crowd flow works. So unfortunately, it probably doesn't process as many guests as they wanted. And I don't know, maybe that's just kind of a fatal flaw in the design of those buildings right there. But still, Mickey Mouse Review, I think, was fun.
That was, now, I don't have a recollection of seeing that one in person. I'm sure I did. Because what year did you say it closed, Herb?
1980.
Oh, no, because 82 was the first time I was there, so I didn't see it. But, I want to say this, though. I am like you. I think I've said it already a couple times. Unfortunately, I sound like a broken record. I do have this, these pangs for nostalgia when it comes to anything with the parks. When you talked about the music, like you are literally, like, I feel like we're on the same wavelength with so many things. Because it's neat how they're able to incorporate some of that stuff to really draw an emotional reaction from the guests. And the way you described it, I think, is perfect. And even if you look at other attractions, I think that's an interesting thing that I'll tell folks. If I have friends that are coming in town, they want to see the park for the first time or they haven't seen it in a while, I'll tell them, kind of pay attention to this. Like, for example, here's a great example. Illuminations. Something that, it's just a fireworks show. No, if you really think about everything that goes on there, there's some fireworks, there's some lasers and that kind of cool stuff. There's a flaming globe, but the music, like that music that's composed for that show really makes it like you can get emotional like watching the fireworks show, or Wish is the same thing. It's amazing how they do that. That's really impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that really sets Disney apart is their investment in music and the quality of what they do. We could probably do another 5 podcasts about things that the Sherman Brothers have done, or many of the other composers and artists that Disney brings on. I think there's this deep emotional connection, and especially when you've already got that connection with a movie that you grew up with. So you hear Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, and you already know the story, and it recalls those moments from Cinderella and brings them all back right away. And I think that a lot of the attractions that call on songs from outside the park really do that. But Johnny, I have to edit that. The example that you had from Illuminations is a great one too, because that's not music that was from a traditional Disney movie. It was created, I believe, for that show, or maybe pulled in for that show, which makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, you really do. Like, I love the Illuminations music as well, and it does. You do get very emotional listening to that. And whenever anyone goes for the first time, that's always one of the things that I tell them they have to make sure they do, no matter what, is do Illuminations. I wish I could say Mickey Mouse Review, but I can't anymore. But Illuminations is something that really does. It tugs at the heartstrings, and it's really, really cool to see. All right, so I guess we're to me now for the last one. And speaking of the music and the nostalgia and the tugging at the heartstrings, my thing that I miss the most at the Magic Kingdom, actually, is the Spectro Magic Parade. As much as I like the Main Street Electrical Parade, this was the parade that I saw when I first came to Walt Disney World. And to me, it just represented everything, like the music, the walk around characters, the floats, everything. It was Disney for me for years. And I said I went down, I worked there for the first time for the college program in '98, and then I went back as a full-time cast member in 2005. And both times, Spectro Magic was the nighttime parade at Magic Kingdom. Kind of in the middle there was the Main Street Electrical Parade came back, but I missed it. So for me, Spectro Magic was Disney for like half of my life. So I really missed that. I love the music. That I still have the music on. Believe it or not, I have it on my running playlist when I run. And it really, I don't know, it's something that I love to listen to. And it was a great parade. I loved everything about it. And I read really, really horrible rumors, and I don't know if this is true or if you guys know anything about it, but when they eventually finished with the floats and they were bringing Main Street Electrical Parade back, they left it out. Apparently they put it on the back level of floats and everything. They left it out in the elements, and the floats all basically got ruined by the Florida sun and the rain, and it wasn't covered up. So they could never bring the parade back. That was kind of a bummer for me.
You just had a really interesting testimonial. I'm gonna go back to a point you just talking about how when you listen to that score when you run, because you think about it, I've definitely seen the parade a bunch of times. As from a nostalgia standpoint, like Main Street Electrical Parade a little bit better. But the music was good for Spectro Magic. It was really good. And when you say how you run, I think that really speaks to the fact that they're able to compose music that can basically work on a number of different levels. It can stand on its own in a number of different. You're using it to run and to kind of keep you motivated and keep your chakras or whatever the proper term is on all your internal energy, your chi.
Chi is right.
But yeah. Oh, I got it right. That's impressive. I was totally just making that up. There was a lot of people who were traditionalists and said, Main Street Electrical Parade was better. And then there's the issue of the colors that were used. And there was the what was the official name for the guys that had like the weird Jason mask face?
I don't know. I don't know the names, but they were a little off.
I call them the sprightly people.
Sprightly people.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
The second time I ever get to use that word.
Nice.
Yeah, sprightly people. It sounds like I could go 50-50 on that. That could either if somebody call me sprightly, I'd either think are they making fun of me or are they complimenting me?
Yes.
You have to noodle that one. I think it was interesting. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people just were hating on it because they love Main Street Electrical Parade so much. But I think if you looked at it and you kind of really appreciated the music, like you mentioned, Phil, and just what you saw visually, it was an interesting parade.
I'm not here to appease the masses. I have to give my own opinions. But yeah, it's funny that because when I brought that up to Herb recently, he said, "Oh no, that's like the ultimate. That's the ultimate showdown is the Main Street Electrical Parade versus Spectre Magic." And it's just
right. We're gonna have a throwdown podcast on that.
Yeah, it's so funny that's like I have like the complete opposite reaction of everyone else. Is I love that parade, and I was so bummed that it went away. And it was kind of cool that they were giving away. I don't know if you saw this. Not giving away, obviously, because Disney doesn't give anything away. But they were selling the lights from the floats. Did you guys see that? You could buy it and like a little display that actually lit up. So it was at the original lights from the floats. That was kind of cool. You could. Like,
I saw they were doing that for the Osborne lights as well, weren't they?
Yeah, that was yeah. But yeah,
that's genius. I mean, that's instead of throwing it in the landfill with the submarine, say, let's just chop them up and sell them.
No, right? They did that with
genius.
There was a couple of the attractions too that they put little pieces of the attractions in pins. I don't know if you saw that, and then you could buy them in like the regular pin stores and stuff.
Man, that's green. That's good. That's green. Green both ways. It's reduce, reuse, recycle, and it's making green. Bravo, Disney. That's impressive. Hey, I want to say something real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
And I want to highlight something you said, and I think you blew past it a little too quickly. Your point about saying you speak your mind, I think for what you do for your travel agency, that is such an important trait, because I happen to know somebody who just went on a cruise, not a Disney cruise, with their family, and I'm not going to say the name of the cruise line because it's a popular cruise line. And they went on the trip because a sister-in-law was a travel agent and got some amazing kickbacks or whatever, however that works. And I started watching and following along on Facebook and seeing what they were up to. They're like, oh, fantastic, best time ever, this is great. So I call them up, say, hey, so I was saying, you guys had a really nice cruise. I'm really happy for you guys. And they said, no, it was terrible. Food was awful. The stateroom was disgusting. The people were, rude and mean. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we had to say that because, that's my sister-in-law. She's the travel agent. And I said, that's a bummer. And I like you are the exact opposite. You speak your mind. You're honest. So, when I'm ready to book my next trip, I obviously want to work with you, and because I know you're going to tell me your honest opinion about stuff.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think I'm honest to a fault. That's at least what my wife tells me. So she stopped asking me questions that she wanted honest answers to a long time ago, man. Because I can't. I'm not good at lying. I won't lie to you. So, yeah. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. So that'll get us through all of our why did Disney get rid of blanks. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me for a while. It was a lot of fun. It was a really good time. So thank you guys both for coming on.
Thank you. This was a good time. I always appreciate talking Disney. So anytime, you just let me know.
Thanks, man. And Johnny, if people want to get in touch with you, or I know you have your whole high five revolution going on. How do they do that?
Yeah, man. It's right now the best place to find me hanging out is on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Johnny Shortsleeve. That's where I have my little page set up. It's Johnny with a Y and Shortsleeve singular. And really the idea there was to see if I can encourage people to join me along in this idea of just how to be an awesome person, do cool stuff, and make people happy and spread good vibes and high fives and all that kind of fun stuff. And I've got a fun little group of folks that are hanging out and being a part of that whole process on the Facebook page. And, we do the Twitter and Instagram stuff too. But the Facebook page is really where it's all kind of hanging out and we're having fun. And people are sharing some cool ideas of things that they're seeing that are really inspiring them throughout their day to do stuff to help people. And just to be mindful of the fact that you can do very, very little things that aren't going to cost you anything, aren't going to put you out, but the impact is tremendous on the people around you. So I think that's a really cool thing to do, and I'm having so much fun doing it. We have the high five shirts. We have a little wall of fame, folks who have the high five shirts. They'll put pictures up, and it's a lot of fun. So, thanks for letting me talk about that for a second.
No, and thank you. And I really think there's a lot of value in what you're doing. I really do. And I enjoyed wearing your the high five shirt at Disney, even though one of your fans came up and scared the pants off me because I forgot I had the shirt on. And here I am trying to change my 3-year-old who had, ice cream all over her shirt, and I wasn't paying attention. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, man," and he gave me a high five, and I was completely blindsided. But
see, it worked because then you were in that state, that emotional state of panic or anxiety or stress when you're like, oh my goodness, I got to clean ice cream the shirt. Oh my goodness, that costs so much. I mean, what am I going to do? Then here comes that stranger out of the blue. Hey man, give me a high five.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like bam, totally changed you, right?
It took me completely out of my state of panic and out of my element a little bit, but it was really cool. And yeah, thank you for doing what you do, and thanks for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Right on, man. Thank you.
And Herb, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that? And how do they, read and listen to more of what you're putting out there?
They can visit the worldofwalt.com website. New articles most days. Also on Facebook and Twitter at World of Walt. And Phil, thank you for your partnership with the site. I really appreciate your contributions to it.
Now, thank you, Herb, for trusting me to put anything at all that I write on your site, and having the guts to do that. I really appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure. Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for being on again. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again soon.
And looking forward to it, man.
All right.
Me
Thanks.
too.
Thank you, guys. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you had as much fun listening as we had talking about this topic. If you enjoyed the podcast, please check out the blog over at eartotheretravel.com. It's full of interesting articles, fun stories, Disney recommendations, and a lot more. You can also head over there to request your free, no-obligation quote for your Disney vacation. I'd love to help you plan your next trip to any Disney destination, and remember, my services are always free of charge. Thanks again for listening, and watch out next week for the newest episode of the Ear to There podcast. Have a great week. Bye-bye.